Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I've got a new series for those people who are looking to have a little bit more fun with the game. Everyone knows about those best DPS builds, best ad clear builds for raids and things like that, but if you've been playing this game for a while, you probably have a lot of exotics in this game that you've never even used, or you've used it once and just didn't put enough time to make a build or to actually try to use it. Now I get it, not all these exotics are actually gonna work for everything that you want to use them for, but when you're looking to relax, just enjoy the game a little bit more, I'm here to put in that work to give you a build that you can use with that exotic and at least actually enjoy it for a little bit while you're chilling. So if that sounds like fun to you, let's get into it. For the first part of this series, I'm going to be focusing on the Synthoceps exotic. What this exotic does is it increases your melee damage when you're surrounded by 3 or more enemies. Now, how much does it increase your damage by? Or if you're melee, it's going to be 300%, so it basically goes times 3 on average. Whether you're using your regular melee or your charged melee, it will multiply that by 3 on average. How do you know you have that perk procced? You'll see on the left hand side of your screen it says biotic enhancement, and even after the enemies are dead, it still lingers for a little while longer, so you could run into the next group of enemies to be able to chain it and keep it going. For this particular video, we're going to be focusing on the arc subclass. Now, if you've looked into mods at all, you would have noticed that everything that has to do with melee has some sort of arc affinity to it. So the reason I started messing with this one a little bit is because I realized, well, if a lot of the elemental wells use arc wells, then I might as well start with arc so I can make those arc wells and actually use them to see what I can create. Now, when we're talking about fun in Destiny 2, it's usually something to do with ability spam. How much can you use your ability over and over to where you're just running around, and especially for a Titan, you're running around, you're meleeing stuff, things are dying, you're doing a lot of damage, mages are getting melted, miners are getting melted. That's usually what you're envisioning when you're thinking about Titan fun, so that's what we're going to try to accomplish today. I'm going to start going into some of the mods, combat style mods, everything that I'm going to use for this build. If it gets overwhelming in any way, I will suggest you watching the mod guide that I have on the channel as well. I'm going to leave a link to it in the description. Just go ahead, check that so you can get a basic understanding of how mods work in the game, and you can come back to this video and it'll make a lot more sense, I promise. So first, I'm going to start with what stats you want on your armor. For this one, I'm going to be choosing recovery and discipline. Now you might be wondering, it's a melee build, why am I starting with recovery and discipline? Well, I'm going to get into how we're going to use our melee and get our melee ability in a little bit, but what you're starting out with is as much recovery and as much discipline as possible. The simple reason for this is you're going to be able to spam your melees with everything else. You want to be able to add your grenade as a benefit on top of that, and when you're moving from one pile of enemies to the next, you want to have enough recovery so you can heal before you get to the next set of enemies. Next, we're going to choose what kind of arc we're going to use, whether we're going to use top tree, middle tree, or bottom tree. This part is a little bit tricky because the top tree and the middle tree both provide different things. With the top tree, you're able to have the perk where you get 2 grenades, so instead of just 1 grenade, you're able to get 2, which means you're spamming that more. In addition to that, the grenades that you throw also last longer, and when you melee a target, your grenade charges faster. So basically you get 3 things. You get 2 grenades, your grenades last longer, and when you melee, you charge your grenade quicker. The middle tree essentially gives you inertia override, which gives you melee energy every time inertia override is active. It reduces your cooldown essentially, so you're able to get your melee quicker. Now, comparing these two, you can kind of see that the top tree has a little bit more benefits in terms of spamming, but I would say the ballistic slime is a little bit more fun. So if you're trying to increase that fun factor and you're not too worried about how much you can spam your abilities, you could try out the middle tree as well. Like I said, this is all for your enjoyment, not necessarily just to follow a specific science of what's best. So now that we've chosen the base stats and we've also chosen the subclass tree that we're going to use, it's time for us to deal with some of the combat style mods. The first combat style mod we're going to use you guys can probably guess it is going to be melee well maker. If we're going to be punching things a lot, we might as well make wells every time we get a melee kill. Now once you use your melee charge, the next thing I'm going to think about is how can I get that melee back. Now there are two mods that come to mind for this. It's either I use the heavy-handed mod or I use the melee kickstart mod. Melee kickstart mod takes a little bit of time to be able to return your melee energy right after you use it. It's good, but the other one I believe is better, which is heavy-handed. What that does is if you are charged with light, it grants you 50% of your melee energy and consumes only one stack of it. So immediately you use that melee ability, you pretty much have 50% of it right back. This I believe to be one of the best mods that you could use for melee. Big shout out to Zeke for pointing this out to me a few months back. But if you're gonna go for a melee build and you don't have a way to instantly regenerate your melee with an exotic, this is by far the best way to get yourself back to that melee to be able to use it again. So now that we have 50% of our melee back, how do we get the rest of the 50? Well, with melee well maker, every time you get a melee kill, you spawn an elemental well. Every elemental well, whatever the element is always going to give you a portion of your melee. But there's an elemental well mod called Well of Striking, where every time you pick up an arc elemental well, you get more melee energy back. So we've got a way to make wells, melee well maker. We've also got a way to use the wells in Well of Striking. We also have heavy-handed that gives us melee energy when we're charged with light, but we've not discussed how we're going to get charged with light. The easiest way to do this, since we're already making wells, is elemental charge. Every time you pick up a well that matches your subclass, you get 2 charged with light, which essentially means you have 1 free one every time to use for heavy-handed. So those are our 4 mods. The last one is going to be elemental ordnance. The reason for this is if we're going to be spamming melee and our melee is going to charge our grenade and we have 2 grenades, those grenades might as well make more elemental wells to provide with all the other benefits we have from the first 4 mods. So all 5 are melee well maker, well of striking, elemental ordnance, heavy-handed, and elemental charge. At this point through the gameplay and from all the mods that we've assembled, you can see what's going to be happening essentially. I melee stuff, I get grenade energy, I get my melee energy back, and I just keep doing that back to back to back. Now if you notice, there's some times where I don't quite get my melee topped off, and there's one thing I add to be able to get that. It's a generic mod called momentum transfer. Causing damage with a grenade reduces your melee cooldown. So essentially, this spam that I'm doing with my melees and my grenades, for me to be able to get my melee back sometimes, I might need to throw that additional grenade to be able to reduce my melee cooldown. So all these mods that we've talked about pretty much gives you the gameplay that you're watching on screen. Essentially, you're running around, you're meleeing stuff and you're throwing grenades and you barely need to use your melee at all. There's one more mod that I add just to make this a little bit more fun, which is the hands-on mod. Essentially, every time I'm using these melees, I'm going to charge up my super quicker as well. So I use my melee, I use my grenade, at some point I get my super, I super, melee, grenade, and it just keeps going on and on and on like that. With the amount of melee energy that you're using and grenades that you're using, it's ridiculous how quickly you get your super. So if you want to go a little bit further in this build and you want to add a little bit more intellect, you can go ahead and do that as well. Now there is one thing I'll say: while you're starting to make this build, you might notice that it's not working quite well, or you're not getting your grenade back as quick, or you're not getting your melee back as quick. It has a little bit of getting used to. So if you want to run something like the Monte Carlo to be able to charge your melee, because what that does is with consecutive hits you have a chance to either fully refill your melee energy or for it to gradually bring your melee back up to full. So that's pretty much it for the video. I just wanted to show you guys that little build that I made for the Arc subclass and the Synthoceps. A lot of people have seen the Void version of this, they've seen the Solar version of this, but not a lot of people have seen the Arc version. That's why I'm sharing that with you guys today, and I hope in your strikes or your psyops, whatever you're doing to just relax and have some fun and enjoy the Destiny game, this build can at least put a smile on your face. I'll catch you guys on the next video. If you have any ideas or something you felt like I missed out that could improve this build, Don't forget, you could always leave that in the comment section below, and if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button. That way the next time I post a video you get notified and you can come check out what new exciting build we have. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. Stay positive, stay safe, peace.